Hello friend. I want to tell you about the Volkswagen Golf car. The fourth incarnation of the iconic Golf GTI is one of those that deserves special attention. Volkswagen offered customers not only several different engine versions, but also a simple car and, as it turned out later, also cheap to repair. A big advantage is the supercharged engine, which works perfectly in everyday driving and is susceptible to modifications. In our opinion, at this price and year, this is one of the most interesting offers on the market. GTI in 4 variants? After the relatively weak Golf IV GTI compared to the competition, Volkswagen presented the new generation in 3 engine variants, and without paying attention to the GTI designation, it can be said that the Golf IV as a fast hatchback was available in as many as 4 versions. Under the hood of the GTI, for the first time, there was a turbocharged engine. Previously, the Mk2 experimented with the G-Later supercharger, Golf GTI G60, but it quickly became history. Meanwhile, the growing power of competitors forced Volkswagen to abandon the idea of a naturally aspirated engine up to 2 liters. There was a lack of a suitably strained unit. With a turbo, customers could no longer complain about a lack of power, as in the Golf III. So it was decided to use the Audi engine, which had proven itself perfectly in the A4 model. We are talking about a 1.8 turbo engine with a 20-valve head. At the time, a turbocharged Golf GTI wasn't exactly what some people expected. Volkswagen was well aware that there were customers who would want a naturally aspirated GTI. That's why an alternative was created in the form of the 2.3 V5 version in 2 power versions. Of course, it's not a V engine, but a VR6 design, from which one cylinder has been removed. The reason? Of course, smaller capacity, quite important due to insurance rates and the weight of the unit, which fits well with the idea of the GTI. As if that wasn't enough, Volkswagen didn't give up on the Golf VR6, but stuck with just one capacity of 2.8 liters. This model shouldn't be considered a GTI. It didn't even use the designation used. It's simply the most powerful, 204 horsepower, and most exclusive version of the Golf, which was sold in Europe only with 4Motion 4-wheel drive. The last proposal for lovers of fast compacts is the Golf 1.9 TDI, where these 3 iconic letters were painted red, and in the GTI 25th anniversary version it was also a real GTI. The red letters added some power to the diesel, and as a result the engine achieves performance at the level of 1.8 T. You will read about the parameters of all the units in a moment. To sum up, the Golf IV was available in 4 powerful engine variants, but only 3 of its versions were marked with the abbreviation GTI. Engines. As we have already mentioned, the Golf GTI was available in 3 engine versions. The 1.8T engine is a 20-valve design, so it is slightly different from the classic 1.8 known from the older generations. Initially, the engine was tuned for 150 HP and 210 Newton-meters. Maximum torque was available from 1,750 revolutions per minute, which made the engine very flexible, and the car reached the first 108.5 seconds. In 2001, the GTI 25th anniversary version was prepared, which was strengthened to 180 HP and 235 Newton-meters. This provided acceleration to 100 km per hour in 7.9s. This version also saw the debut of the powerful 1.9 TDI diesel, which generates 150 HP and as much as 320 Newton-meters of torque. According to the manufacturer, it accelerates to 100 km per hour in 8.6s, which is at the level of the weaker 1.8T. The 2.3 V5 engine was offered in parallel with the 1.8T. It came in 2 power versions, 150 and 170 HP. Torque was 205 and 220 Newton-meters generated at 3,200 and 3,300 revolutions per minute, respectively. Maximum power appeared at 6,000 and 6,200 revolutions per minute, respectively, which allows us to claim that this was a more pure GTI than the supercharged version. Maximum power is achieved at 5,700 revolutions per minute, 150 hydrogen phosphide, and 5,500 revolutions per minute, 180 hydrogen phosphide. However, the weaker V5 had the worst acceleration time to 100 km per hour, which was 8.8 s. Only the 170 HP version gathered better 8.2 s. Which engine to choose? Although we do not belittle the diesel version, which is still a version of the Sports Golf GTD designation, we believe that a real GTI should have a petrol engine under the hood. Besides, the strained 1.9 TDI unit can be worn out after years of use, and there is something to repair in this engine. However, if someone is a fan of diesel fuel and likes the characteristics of diesel, why not? You can approach the 2.3 V5 version without any worries. It is not a failed engine, it has a relatively simple design and high durability. Its 5 cylinders only slightly increase the cost of some service activities, while the timing is chain-driven and a solid one at that. Nevertheless, some parts may not be readily available, especially those that are not typically used. The advantage of this engine is the sound, much nicer than in the 1.8T. In addition, the characteristics can be liked. The low popularity of this engine, not in the Golf GTI, sometimes causes difficulties with repairs or obtaining parts, and mechanics sometimes turn up their noses. Despite everything, it is an interesting variety. We recommend it to those who want to install an LPG installation. The best solution in the Golf GTI is to choose the popular 1.8T unit. It is more economical than the V5, although slightly more unreliable. In addition, the versatile use of this engine allows you to safely buy a second one as a replacement, because it was offered in Audi, Seat and Škoda cars, not only in sports versions. Swapping for a more powerful engine, e.g. from the Audi S3, TT or Seat Leon Cupra, is not a big challenge. You just have to remember that in the Audi A4 or VW Passat, among others, the engine was mounted longitudinally. From an operational point of view, the 1.8T engine is a good design, although it has some typical problems. Their number results from the number of units sold, but overall it is a correct engine. There are problems with the heads, mainly with gas supply, but only and exclusively due to the fault of the user or the workshop servicing the installation. Each chamber contains 5 valves, quite tightly packed, which gives smaller safety reserves than in 4-valve designs. Even without gas, there is still another problem, in the form of hydraulic valve lifters, which can fail at 200,000 kilometers. A symptom of wear is engine clatter. The compensators should be replaced immediately, and at the same time it is worth checking the timing chain connecting the shafts. They are connected by it, although they are driven by a timing belt from the crankshaft, which is replaced every 120,000 kilometers. If the chain tensioner is not working, unwanted noises will also appear. Another typical fault is the blockage of the lubrication system, most often the oil strainer and the lines at the turbocharger. They are usually the cause of the turbo seizing, and their cause is neglect, including the use of the wrong oil. Fortunately, turbochargers are popular and simple, so they can be cheaply rebuilt. Cooling fluid loss most often means water pump wear, while excessive engine oil consumption is usually the fault of valve seals. You should use 5W30 viscosity oil that meets the appropriate VW standards, in this case 502.00. For more demanding designs, you can pour in oil with increased viscosity. It should be changed every 10 to 12,000 kilometers. It is also worth noting that all Golf GTI engine versions are equipped with a dual-mass flywheel. This is very durable and cheap to buy in the 1.8T, difficult to get and a bit more expensive for the 2.3, while less durable in the diesel, but also cheap to buy. In the 150 HP petrol versions, you can easily give up the dual-mass flywheel. Can the dual-mass flywheel be eliminated and how, and replace it with a dedicated clutch with stronger dampers? All of the above faults may seem terrifying, and these are only the most common ones. However, contrary to appearances, the engine is not prone to failure and the probability that you will suffer from any of the ailments is small. We repeat, the number of faults results from the great popularity of the model, not engine defects. Of course, a lot depends on the model and its mileage. As we mentioned earlier, the 1.8T engine is very susceptible to modifications. Serial versions with a power of well over 200 HP were offered. Electronic tuning already gives satisfactory gains, and users and mechanics agree that the engine marked with the AEB code is the best for modification. It was only available in a longitudinally mounted version, in the Audi A4 and VW Passat. However, this does not mean that the Golf unit cannot be tuned. With the right precautions, the power can be increased to 200 HP and it is a safe procedure. What's broken? Apart from the engine, there are no major concerns. The drivetrain and chassis are not only durable, but thanks to the huge number of replacements, they are also cheap to repair and modify. You can buy good quality sports suspension from a renowned manufacturer, and we are talking about shock absorbers with springs. There are also no problems with modifying the brakes. The parts are in the dirt. Faults, if they do happen, are usually minor. Wiper mechanism, switches, corrosion of electrical connectors, flow meter, EGR, central locking. These are things that appear in every car of this age. Remember that the Golf IV is a minimum 13-year-old car, and in the GTI version, usually quite intensively used. The good news is that the body and chassis are virtually rust-free. However, the interior elements wear out quickly, the typical Volkswagen wear of buttons. The assembly is exemplary even after years. We recommend the Honda Civic VTI above all if you can find one in good condition and the Opel Astra OPC, but rather in the naturally aspirated version with a 160 horsepower engine. The Peugeot 306 S16 is a car for enthusiasts. The Golf's biggest competition is its other incarnations in the form of the Audi S3, Seat Leon Cupra and Škoda Octavia RS. There is something for everyone. Thanks for listening to me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and rate my video. If you know of any problems with this car that I haven't mentioned, be sure to write about them in the comments.
I have good news for you. Now, if you are planning to buy a used car, or learn more about your car, you no longer need to search for the information you need on the internet. We have collected everything in one place for you, on the website carme.pro. Here you can find out everything about the car, what brakes and at what mileage, any problems with engines, chassis or gearboxes, which trim levels are better not to mess with and how not to lose money buying a used car. You will learn all this on carme.pro.